Hello students, Michael Sanchez here. Hope you guys are having a good day. I'm going to talk to you guys about 3 different drills today that you guys can do to improve your sound on the violin. And it's all going to have to do with bow tension. So when beginners first start playing the violin, a lot of times they're getting unwanted sounds. So like, you know what I'm talking about. So we're going to talk today how exactly to prevent that. And it's going to be basically talking about 3 things. The bow grip, the arm, and then also the wrist. So after we talk about these things, you're going to have a lot better feel about what is causing those sounds, and definitely hopefully have some things to work on. So let's first talk about bow grip. So first thing, I want to make sure you guys are gripping the bow correctly. So make sure that your fingers are on an angle. So we don't want them to be straight. We want our pinky to be curved, and we want our index finger to be right about there. So you see how my index finger isn't way up here? Make sure it's right about there is where you're putting the index on the bow. And then the other side of things, your thumb should be like this. Now probably the #1 bad habit of the bow grip is I see students with what I call a banana thumb, where there's tension in their thumb. So even if your thumb is correct like this, this is the way it should be, try to feel your muscle right here in your thumb. You feel like you're tensing that up when you're bowing? If so, that means that you're providing a tension up against the bow, which is causing you to get a bad sound. So let me explain this a little further. So if our thumb is jabbing, up against the bow, what it's doing is causing the bow to be really stiff. So this is an exaggeration. So we're bowing with our thumb. We're putting all this tension up against it. And that's what causes that sound. Because there's unwanted pressure. So basically the bow should always be very flexible when we're bowing. So everything we're going to be talking about today has to do with how to get rid of tension that causes this. Okay? So the thumb is definitely a big one. So go ahead and try this once. So I want you to grab a friend or family member, and I want you to bow, and what I want your friend to do is grab the bow at a random time, and I want your friend to feel how easy it is to rock the bow like this, okay? So if your friend grabs the stick and feels it tense, so you're bowing and they grab it and they're having trouble getting it from you, you're gripping the bow too hard. So it should be very easy to just grab and feel this. So when I'm helping students, I'm constantly doing this, circling the bow to make sure that they're not grabbing too tight. So even though the actual grip is correct, even if my thumb is like this, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're applying the correct pressure. Okay? Now some people might say like, well, I don't have any control over the bow. I can't get it to the tip because I'm not grabbing it hard enough. That's a good thing. You should be feeling like that, because what gives us that control or that pressure to get to the tip, back and forth, should be coming from this finger. This is the finger that brings us to the tip. Now it takes a while to get used to that. But basically this is the motion of the index finger. This is what it's doing. It's pressing down and guiding. Okay? So that means that these fingers shouldn't be doing anything. You shouldn't be gripping hard with those fingers. They're just there for balance, okay? So technically I can bow with just these 2 fingers. So they're just here for balance, okay? So a lot of times some students I notice have like a lot of pressure with like this one up against the bow, which causes that unwanted tension. Okay, so definitely get your friend to get involved with this and feel how much you're grabbing the bow. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about is the arm. So most students that play the violin, they use too much arm muscle at first. So I'll show you what you don't want to do. We never want the shoulder to be moving when we're bowing. So we never want this. See how it's moving? And also notice my elbow. My elbow is moving a lot. That's incorrect. What we actually want is you to extend and then use the wrist muscle instead of the arm and the elbow and the shoulder. So a lot of you guys have seen my website, and you guys are members, have seen my quarter drill, where you have to balance a quarter on your wrist when you're bowing back and forth. Because notice, no matter where you're at, the wrist is level. You can actually just practice doing that, keeping it level. Okay. What you can do too is grab your elbow, and then just do the bow motion, but make sure you're not. So everything's really compacted. See how it's just all wrist, not so much elbow. Okay. Now some students do this on just a semi-extreme where it's not as bad, but it's still noticeable when I'm teaching. So some students are kind of like this. They're kind of extending and moving the elbow at the same time. Okay? Which causes less tension, but there's still a little bit of tension there. Okay? So one thing you could do, this is not the funnest thing to do, but you could actually put your elbow up against a wall so it's restricting this. Not the most comfortable thing to do, but it's actually really good practice. Or get a friend to just keep your elbow in. When I'm teaching, I'm constantly pushing the elbow in to make sure it's not coming out. So hopefully that makes more sense on the arm, how that causes tension up against the bow. But it all relates to this, right? We don't want that. So this can cause that, and this can cause that. Okay, so we want just very loose, very jugular. I don't know if that's a word. It's very relaxed. Okay? All right, so far we talked about the grip, we've talked about the arm, and we've talked about the wrist. So let me also give you one more test that's really going to be able to tell you if you're gripping the bow too tight. And actually this is a really good one because most students, they get their tension when they're crossing strings. So if you notice that when you're going from like the D to the A string, okay, that's the most common time that the bow tenses up is with crossovers. Okay, so that can be happening because we're grabbing the bow to cross over, or we're using the shoulder, the elbow, or we're gripping too hard, right? There's a lot of things that can be causing that. Okay, so one thing you can do is set your bow on the strings, and what I want you to do is just rock back and forth from the G string to the E string. Notice where my elbow is going, because when you switch strings, you pivot to that spot: D string elbow, A string elbow, E string elbow. But it's not actually doing this, okay? But you're just bringing it up to a certain spot: G, D, A, E. So now rock back and forth. Now, do you guys notice this sound when you guys are crossing? That means that you're applying too much pressure somewhere. It could be with the hand, it could be with the shoulder, it could be with anything, with the fingers. So if you practice that, if you're going back and forth and finally you do it a number of times and you don't get any of that bad crunchy sound, then you're starting to improve your sound. So, and you'll notice how it translates over to other material and playing. So you'll start to get a better sound when you start working on this. Okay? So work on the wrist practice. Work on keeping your elbow in with a friend or with a wall. And then also work on that drill. I hope that makes sense. And definitely email me if you have any questions. I'm always here on live chat, on Skype, any way to be of assistance to you guys. So please let me know if you have any questions. And I really hope you have great progress on the violin, and I hope to hear about it. You guys have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.